Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm going to show you how to create a budget from start to finish, and I've broken it down into 6 easy steps. The budget that I will be creating tonight comes from a client of mine from Horsehead, New York. They are a fiscal officer making $68,500 with an additional $350 a week in child support. Their monthly income, including their child support, is $4,512. So now I'm going to show you how to break down the budget step by step. So we're going to work on step 1 right now, which is budget preparation.
Step 1, budget preparation. Before you sit down to start your budget preparation, you're going to want to make sure that you've collected all of your monthly bills. The budget preparation sheet has a column for the bill name, the amount that is due each month for that bill. Then you put the due date in the column, whether it's due between the 1st and the 15th or the 16th and the end of the month. This budget preparation sheet is set up for creating a bi-weekly paycheck budget. You could always feel free to adjust those dates to make it work for you. However, they would still work even if you were doing a weekly or a bi-weekly paycheck budget. The amount outstanding and that interest rate are going to be really important later on when you go to tackle the debt on your high interest loans and credit cards. Then you start filling in your bills line by line. So the first one for them is their mortgage. Their total mortgage is $1,250 for the month. When I put that slash there, that means that I want to allocate $625 between the 1st and the 15th, and then again on the 16th to the end of the month. By splitting up those bills that are larger denominations, it just balances out your budgets throughout the month, and it helps make it easier so that way then you're not draining yourself during one of those paychecks. All of the digital files that you're going to be seeing me use can be located on my website, www.debtfreelivingny.com. The app that I'm using for the PDF file is GoodNotes, and I'm working on an iPad Pro with an Apple Pen. Now for her trash bill, it's actually $35 every 2 months. So what I do for a bill like that is I just divide that amount in half. I rounded it up. Instead of $17.50, I made it $18. And every month I'm going to have her allocate $18 to the trash, so she would put that money aside. So that way then when the bill comes in every other month, she has the money put aside. Now for our variables like groceries and fuel, you'll see I do the same thing. So she gave me an estimate of $320 a month that she spends on her groceries. That means that I'm going to allocate $160 on the 1st and again on the 16th to her grocery bill. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the 1st and the 16th. I'm going to allocate $100 for her gas bill. Her car insurance is due every 6 months. So we're going to do a sinking fund where we put $77 a month into that sinking fund for her. Or she could just keep it as a line item on her budget and just put $77 aside every month. All right, now on to her credit cards. This is why it's really important that you know the outstanding balance and the interest rate. Now that we've written down all of our expenses, we're going to add them up, find out what our total is. So now we're going to do all the calculations to see if she's got a surplus every month or a deficit. So we take her income, which is that $3,112. She makes $1,556 every 2 weeks, which comes out to the $3,112. And then she gets weekly child support in the amount of $350, and that's where we get that $1,400 from. So her total income for the month is $4,512. And that total expenses for the month was $3,239. And that is going to leave her with $1,273 as an anticipated surplus for the month.
Once you've completed step 1, you're on to step 2, which is the monthly budget. Let's go.
So step 2 is that monthly budget. The monthly budget's really nice because it's just giving you an overview of what is coming in income-wise and what is going out expense-wise. So again, you can find this digital file on my website at debtfreelivingny.com. The monthly budget is offered in a few different layouts. I prefer using this layout, which is in a fixed versus variable layout. So the reason why I like looking at the monthly budget in a fixed and variable layout is because those fixed expenses are just that. They're every single month due on the same exact day, the same amount every single month. And those variable expenses are the opposite. They vary, and a lot of times they vary based on you and the decisions that you make throughout the month. So your grocery bills could vary, as well as your gas bills for the month. What's important to note here is that your credit card payments are considered variable expenses. So you're going to make sure that you put those credit card payments in the variable expenses column. Also, you want to make sure that when you're budgeting for your credit cards, you are using the minimum amounts due only. I'm going to say that again. So when we budget for our credit cards, we use the minimum amounts on our budget. All right, so now I finished filling out the fixed expenses for the month, and we're going to move over to the variable. Once all the fixed and variable expenses have been listed on the monthly budget, then you go ahead and you get the totals for each column. Then we bring our income down to the bottom. We put our total expenses, which is that $32.39, and we get again the $12.73 as an anticipated surplus. So the Excel spreadsheet and Google Sheets digital file that I offer on my website, this is what the monthly budget looks like. You see all the months all the way across. It's the annual budget tab, and it's kind of like a landing page on the Excel spreadsheet. All the categories are pre-populated. You go in there, you put in the dollar amounts for your paycheck, all your home expenses, your insurance, etc. You determine whether it's a fixed or variable expense, and you put in the dollar amount. And you do that all the way to the end.
Okay, now that we finished step 2, which is the monthly budget, we're going to zoom in a little bit closer and we're going to look at paycheck budgets. So step 3 is the paycheck budget. Let's go.
So just like the monthly budget, the paycheck budget does come in a couple of different layouts. All of them are available on my website, and they all come in the same PDF file. This is my favorite layout that I like to use for the paycheck budget, with all the categories that are populated in there for you. So now the key to the paycheck budget is making sure that you enter in all the bills that are due between the two pay periods. So she's getting paid on the 13th. So all the bills that are going to be due between the 13th and her next paycheck are all the bills that we're going to list here on the paycheck budget. Once we're done filling in all of our expenses for the month, then we go ahead and we add up each of those subcategories and find out what the total amount of expenses are for the pay period. Then we deduct that from our income and we get an anticipated surplus. So her anticipated surplus is $900. Now I just went ahead and duplicated the slide, cleared it, and I'm going to do the next paycheck for the month, which is the 27th, and do the same thing. All of the bills that are going to be due between the 27th of the month and her next paycheck for going forward to February. Now between the two paycheck budgets, we've accounted for all of the bills for the month for her. We then go ahead and repeat the process and add up all of those individual expenses, then add them all up together, figure out what our total expenses are for the month, and then deduct them from our income, giving us another anticipated surplus that we're going to add to the surplus log. Now, if you're using the Excel spreadsheet digital files that I offer on my website, then the individual monthly budgets would be considered your paycheck budgets. You'll see in there that everything got pre-populated from that annual budgets page. Everything just, all the numbers just shot over in here. All you have to do when you come in here is enter in all the due dates and then allocate it to the 1st to the 15th paycheck or the 16th to the 31st paycheck. All the way through. Then there's graphs off to the side, which show you exactly which categories your money is being allocated to per month.
Once you've completed steps 1, 2, and 3, it's up to step 4, which is the surplus log, which is equally as important. Let me show you why.
So now over here on the surplus log is where we capture that surplus that we got from those paycheck budgets. So I'm going to write them over here. So that January 13th one, she should have $900 that she's depositing. And then the January 27th one should have another $300 that she's depositing, giving us a total of $1,200. Now, she doesn't have any savings. It's recommended before you start using any of your surplus money to snowball debt that you put $1,000 aside for an emergency fund. The emergency fund is not intended to cover all of your expenses. It's just an insurance policy that if something happens, like you need to get your car towed, you need new brakes, whatever, that you have the money put aside in an emergency fund and you'll be able to pay cash for it rather than pull out those credit cards. Remember, if you're making the commitment to get out of debt, then you got to stop using those cards. Now that she has an emergency fund secured, her $1,200 is going to be divided with $1,000 going to debt and $200 to fund money.
Now that we completed step 4 and we know how much of a surplus there is every month, and we've decided how much of that surplus we want to allocate to debt or to our sinking funds, we now move on over to step 5, which is sinking funds. Let me show you.
So the surplus log is a place for us to just hold our money while we decide what job we want to give each one of those dollars. We knew that the first thing we wanted to do was get that $1,000 in the emergency fund, so that's what we did first. And now we're going to allocate $200 a month to fund money. If you're using the Google Sheets or the Excel file, this is what the sinking funds looks like on that. That number in the total surplus column gets automatically entered in there from the information that was entered on the annual budget page. Then you just go ahead and you decide which dollar amount you're going to allocate to either debt, sinking funds, or savings funds.
Now that we've completed all steps 1 through 5, we're on to the final step, which is our debt snowball calculations. Let me show you exactly how accurate the Excel spreadsheet makes it in figuring out how long it's going to take you to get out of debt. Let's go.
So heading over to the debt snowball calculator on the Excel spreadsheet, it is set up as a snowball calculator. The term snowball calculations means that you're going to start with the lowest outstanding balance and then work your way all the way up to the highest outstanding balance. For this client, because both of her credit cards had a 0% interest, I did the Citibank first, even though that has the higher balance, because that 0% interest is going to expire before the Chase one. So I entered in the information and the minimum amounts due. Remember, just the minimum amounts were due. And it's calculating it's going to take 68 months before she would be finished paying off these 2 credit cards if she continued just making the minimum payments of $78 on the 2 of them. Now, remember we said we were going to do $1,000 surplus every month. So let's add that $1,000 in as an extra monthly payment and see how much quicker she's able to pay off her debt by doing that. And look at that. By adding that extra $1,000 in, now she will be debt-free in 5 months as opposed to the original debt-free date of 68 months. And the spreadsheet tells you exactly what the monthly payments will be. Once I've used the snowball calculator to calculate their debt, I then head back over to the debt payment tracker in that PDF file and I plug in all the numbers for her. And now steps 1 through 6 are complete, and it's just a matter of sticking to the budget and reassessing every month.